Hi, my name is Lars Helgeson. I am the founder and CEO of GreenRope and the author of CRM for Dummies. And this is the fourth in a series of Fireside chats where we're talking about complete CRM and talking about how we make complete CRM work for your organization. So today we're going to talk about data models. So it's not something to be intimidated or scared by. It's really a data model just as a way for us to store information and manage it and then use it. So when we look at data models, we look at really storing two different kinds of data, fields and objects. So I'm going to start with fields and break this down in a way that is pretty simple, where we're looking at, say, an individual. Now we could do this with a company, but for the purposes of today, we're going to talk about this in the sense of an individual contact or a person. So this could be a lead, it could be a customer, it could be a vendor, anyone that you want to track within your CRM. So here's a contact. We're going to create custom fields and we're going to have standard fields. So this could be, say, for example, a person. This could be an email address. So in this case, we're looking at a one-to-one mapping, and that's the difference between a field and an object. A field allows you to do a one-to-one map. So in other words, this contact has one email address. They're going to have one name. So these fields are directly associated with this contact. Now we can also do custom fields. So a custom field could be an age, as an example, or it could be income, or maybe it's net worth. But what this allows you to do is define information about an individual contact. So this is important because remember in the last two things that we talked about, the last two videos we talked about, the first one we talked about our market segments, and the second one we talked about process and how process has to be different for our different market segments so that we can really personalize what the user experience is as they go through the buyer's journey. In this case, we're looking at these fields and we're understanding, we're trying to gather as much useful information as we can. Now we don't necessarily want to gather absolutely everything, but if we ever want to use this information as a way to, say, identify a particular market segment and be able to say, let's pull out everyone that is over the age of 50 who makes more than $100,000 a year, for example, you have to have that data within your CRM or else you won't be able to do that. So what we're trying to do here is create a model, a data model that allows us the flexibility to say, I want to say, send people to a particular web page or send a survey out to particular people, or invite people to events, or send an email newsletter, or send some videos for certain people to watch, depending on what we know about them, about these fields. So it's important to think about what are the fields that I need to track for all of my market segments. So here's our market segments. And we look at, remember when we talked about this, we have our 4 market segments. And each of these is going to have a process where people are going to be going from one step to another. And as we go through this process, and if we need to, say, split the process depending on certain information that we know, maybe it's behavioral, maybe it's demographic, we're going to have that information here stored within our CRM. And so when we look at these fields, this is what we want to use them for. So the next thing that we want to talk about, the thing that's different between fields and objects, really is the ability to put more than one associated with a contact. So for this example, so let's say we want to have multiple objects and we want to attach them to this individual contact. So one example that I like to use, I talk about real estate because it's something that most of us have some experience with. We have customers in all kinds of different industries, but most of us have been through the process of either buying or renting a house. And when we do, sometimes we use a realtor. And that realtor's job is to keep track of certain things that they have done when they've worked with you. So in this case, so maybe this is a customer and this is a realtor, and this could be one house, this could be 2 houses, this could be the 3rd house. So if I'm a realtor and I'm tracking these 3 different houses that I have sold this individual, then I'm going to create 3 different objects. And with each object, I'm going to have definitions of what I want to track. So in this case, maybe it's number of square feet, number of bedrooms, how much it was sold for, number of bathrooms, whatever, does it have a pool? All of these things can be attributes associated with the custom object. So this is important because with fields, it's a one-to-one map. With objects, you can have as many objects as you need. So say this individual then wants to get another house, all you do is you create a fourth object and you fill in those attributes and attach them to that individual contact. Now this is a very important distinction in CRMs because a lot of CRMs do not support having custom objects. So objects are very important because chances are when you do your business, you're going to be tracking information like this. Now we can help you do that. Our support team is great. They've worked with tons of different businesses and they can help you identify what these are. But think about when you build your CRM and you look at all the things you're going to have to track here and the information you're going to have to store. What are the fields that you need and what are the objects that you need? Define those as early as possible so that you don't have to try and add things on and then adjust things later. It's a lot easier to do it. I mean, obviously it can be done with GreenRope. It's actually pretty simple, but we want it for simplicity's sake and for strategic planning. We want to have as much of this mapped out ahead of time. So hopefully this talks to you about some of the fundamentals of the information that you're going to store and how you're going to use that information. One of the things that I think is important as a differentiator between GreenRope and other CRMs, and this is one of the things, aside from custom objects, when you're interacting with a form on GreenRope, we do some things behind the scenes to make things easier for you. One of those is when an individual fills out a form, we do some validation. We make sure that if you get a contact coming through this system, we make sure that it's a valid contact. So this happens, it's a free service. It's something that we do behind the scenes to make sure that you don't get people that come in here and try to trap you with, say, a spam trap. So it's a little bit of a defense mechanism so that your forms are protected. One of the other things that we do is when we identify that someone is legitimate, we do what's called data appending, which is going to say that once we know the email address of the person who's filled this out, we use a third-party data provider to go and fill in that information with more information. So we can say, based on this email address, we know this about them, and it's all publicly available information, something like their Facebook URL, their Twitter URL, the number of followers they have, things like that. So that saves you the time of having to go to each of their public profiles and grab that information. We go and we get that public information for you, and we automatically append it to the contact record. So some great advantages with you using GreenRope, this form integration. After they're in your CRM, we also have a contact research feature where you can just go in and you can just click a button and it'll do that same research for you for free. We also do that with companies. It's also free. It's also included within a GreenRope account. So we can tell you publicly available information about the company, when it was founded, number of employees, their social media handles, all of that. So it's a really effective time saver. So what we want to do is create this all-inclusive data model, because this data is going to be used by all the different components of the CRM. And the more data we have, the better armed we are to serve our customers. So this concludes the setup portion when we talk about how to do some of the fundamentals of setting up your CRM. I'm now going to talk with some additional videos about some of the individual functions that we have and how to use them to really help your organization benefit from effective marketing and sales techniques.